our pet projects at TWG, the working group. So the SOFA is a micro CMS for Rails, and the difference between SOFA and other existing CMSs is that it plugs into your app rather than the other way around. So if you have an app that you're working with, you don't have to build your app around an existing CMS app, which is one of the pain points that we felt when we were using other CMSs out there. And we sought out to build something that was super easy to integrate and still had all the functionality and features of existing CMSs. So during one of our winter retreats in Mexico in 2009, Oleg spent a lot of his time on a very comfy sofa coding and sleeping and eating and everything else.
I'm actually coding right there.
Yeah, that's the original sofa there. So that's where the CMS was born, and that's how it got its name. So we're gonna walk you guys through, like, I can tell you guys about all the cool features and all the neat things it can do, but it's just a whole lot easier to show you. So we're gonna walk you guys through an app that doesn't have a CMS built into it, and we're gonna put SOFA into it and get you started within a few minutes. So here we have one of our other apps called Feedbacker, which doesn't have a CMS built in. So I'll let Oleg take it from here.
Yeah. You gotta hold the microphone because you
Can't see anything.
You can't see anything.
Everyone sit down.
Yeah. Are you awesome, Paul?
It's like kindergarten. All right, tall kids in the back.
Okay, great. Which does its own thing, whatever it does, it's not really important. The point is that currently this application does not have any way of managing static content, such as, I don't know, like for instance, a About Us page. So if you go to a About Us page, well, that's what you would see normally with Rails applications, the fact that, well, there's nothing there. So we need to fix it rather quick, and we do this by, let's see. So the first thing you need to do, you need to open up the application, obviously, which I already have open. And people who develop in Rails are obviously familiar with how you install gems and all the plugin stuff for your application. So the one I have here, all I have to do really is to say gem comfortable Mexican sofa. And this one is using the most recent Rails 3.1 code, so that's why it looks kind of weird, but generally you just need this one. And from there, all you really need to do, you need to button install, which takes a second, and it's done. The next step is to run Rails GCMS, which is basically just to generate CMS. So it puts all the files, initializers, and all the stuff, which with Rails 3.1 is actually just a few things. Yeah, I know, it's a big thing. So all it really does is just puts an initializer and puts some CMS pictures, which is like one of the features that it does. And what else do we need to do? And we probably need to restart the server. And that really should give us something right now. And it takes a while to restart something. And bam, right there. So the page not found. We're not getting an error anymore, but we're getting a notification that there's no page there. So we have to fix that. And if you go to CMS admin, you're going to be presented with something like this. And I already had a homepage set up, but we need to set up an about page, which will look something like this. It should be a little bit wider, I think. Here we go. So let's say it's going to be about us. So there's a header, which is going to be those, and some content. And you create it. And when you do that, and you go back to our application, like so, you click about us link, and bam, I actually got something. And that's basically the idea, is the fact that you can inject a way of maintaining a static content very, very quickly. And because Comfortable Mexican Sofa is so tiny, it's very easy to actually integrate all this functionality that manages all your content, which could be very minimal. It could be just basically, I need the About Us page, and I need to, get it up there quick, and I should be able to manage it. Or it could be as complicated as that, client comes into you and says like, I need a web page which does all these crazy things, and I need to be able to change everything, absolutely everything. And you're like, okay, that sounds fun. And actually with SOFA, you can actually do that. It's actually not that complicated. As a matter of fact, we had a site up which client was able to manage pretty much everything, like basically starting from the layouts, ending with CSS, which is kind of nice. This way you can just basically let them do whatever they want, which is kind of nice. So yeah, if you're interested, everything is obviously open sourced, and it's actually fairly active code base at the moment. There's a bunch of commits happening. It is an active record-based CMS, and it's kind of slow. But there's actually a guy who actually made a branch which it's a MongoID-based CMS. So if you're into that thing, you can probably do that. I don't think it's loading. Trust me, it's there though. Like if you actually go there, you can get it, and there's like a documentation and everything. It's pretty awesome.
Are you connected to this?
I don't think. Yeah, I'm connected to the wireless. I'm just not.
I can vouch for you, it's there.
Oh, look at that! It just came up. So a bunch of code, bunch of documentation that will help you get started, which honestly doesn't take very long, as you could saw. I mean, as you saw. It honestly just like 2 minutes and you're up. And then the rest is just basically you figuring out what exactly you need to do, how to configure it. It's very, very flexible. One of the major functionalities of this thing is actually constructing the templates, meaning that every single page you can define every single piece of content that you want to manage. You don't have to manage everything, but you can selectively choose what you want to be able to change, and that's very easy to set up. Like for instance, in this case, like it's just a screenshot, but like here I opened up areas to maintain like a meta stuff. I split page in like left and right columns and so on and so on. Like the thing is like it's infinitely customizable, and that's what is kind of nice about it. And that's pretty much it, really. So, if you have any questions?
Do you guys have any questions?
Come on, questions!
It's just that self-explanatory.
What about Access Module?
It was built by Jack from our company as well, because we also needed a blog. And it's actually, you can find it in somewhere here.
Sofa blog.
It's called Sofa Blog, you're right. Right there. Oh, right there. Perfect. So all it really is just another little engine that plugs into the Sofa. And then basically you get common interfaces, but yeah, blog, done.
All right, anyone else?
That I was working on, I've been working on for the last year or so. And while I was working on it, I was following Giles Bucket's Twitter stream, and he mentioned that one of the diary app he was using had eaten a whole bunch of his data. So when Remembery was ready, I actually emailed him and said, hey, try Remembery, it won't eat your data. And if it does, I personally guarantee that I will write replacement diary entries for the ones that you missed, but they'll be better than your real life. And for people who maybe follow Giles or know Giles, he already has a pretty intense kind of life. He is an actor, he is a developer, he's a speaker, he's a radical vegan, he's many, many things. He's outspoken, he writes amazing blog posts, tweets prolifically, and in fact also I like to carry this Ruby Fringe t-shirt around because then I can say I was there when Giles gave a talk, that the only talk I've ever seen at a conference, not just a tech conference, but any conference, where everybody stayed. It went half an hour into lunchtime at a tech conference, and not a single person left to head for lunch. And this was dim sum at the Metropolitan, which is, so everybody stayed for the. So when he said, well, that's kind of interesting. So why don't you show me some examples? So I wrote a week worth of like fake blog posts fake diary entries for him, sort of in a Mark Lehner. If anybody knows Mark Lehner, the sort of postmodernist crazed author from the 90s. Maybe not, okay. But sort of slightly superhero, slightly unreal, slightly cyberpunk kind of world. And and I sent that to him, and he sort of put it on the blog and everything, and I thought it was kind of fun. And I was gonna just reread those, and then have like the blog, the tweets that were based on showing up on the screen. But Giles is such a prolific Twitterer that it actually, this was just back in last November, and we actually no longer have those in the last 3,000 tweets that you're able to access through the Twitter interface. So I had to do another batch. So I've done another batch of completely new content from the last week or so. And since I can't quite reach that at the same time, although here, wait, let's see. Hey, it reaches. Oh, there we go. Is that, okay, we'll make it purple now. Can people see that? Does that work? Okay, so this is actually the Remembery interface with the tweets open. It's a diary app that actually pulls down your Twitter feeds, and in the next version that's coming up, your photos from your iPad photo library and any geotagging that you have in those, and gives you context on what showed up in the day so that you can remember what the hell you did last week if you get too busy to keep your diary, which is what I do. So I'm going to read the fake diary entries that I wrote from a superhuman version of Giles Bucket. Give me a second. So Friday, May 20th, 2011. I did some programming today, then worked on my audition monologue. It's really weird to go from full-on actor brain to full-on programmer brain. Decided to make some self-hypnosis MP3s to help shift gears. As you can see, that's totally, actually, completely accurate. That's not superhuman, Giles. That's really... I set up the hypnosis MP3s and ran through them in the afternoon. Great stuff. Now I'm a master at Vim and Emacs. Saturday, May 21st. Is that here? Oops. Oh, cool. Awesome. Saturday, May 21st. Went to acting class, and Megan Fox was there. Since she got kicked out of the next Transformers movie, she's back to finding a good monologue and headshot and trying out for commercials and community theater. Told her I might have a gig for her. May 21st. Looks like the Rapture came and went, and I spent it at a burrito place. I don't know if I was called up since I blocked Jesus on Twitter a while back for his holier-than-thou attitude. Sunday, May 22nd. Hold on. There we go. Oops. It's not actually... Jesus found another Twitter account, but then called me an asshat for not joining him yesterday. He's blocked. Megan Fox came by today to help me concentrate on my coding. Every 8 minutes or so, I'm having her jump into my office wearing a BSD Booth Babe Red Devil outfit with an In-N-Out burger in one hand and a 357 Magnum in the other. Really helped me stay off Twitter and Hacker News and focus on work. Now, if you haven't seen Giles Bucket's handcuffs video, this might not make any sense whatsoever, but if you have, it's actually kind of a good intro. Worth seeing if is it still available?
Yes.
Okay, the record's still available. So tomorrow, I found out if I can eat a whole pound of spinach. Oops, I screwed this up. Here we go. Whoops. I managed to make a mess. Hold on. Sorry, here we go. Monday, May 23rd, 2011. Thought of a way to help my out-of-work actors friends and cut back on all of the headhunter spam I've been getting. I'll teach the actors how to act and speak like programmers. Then they can keep the recruiters busy. They might even be able to get jobs. Sure beats waiting tables. Making some hypnosis MP3s for them. First lesson, how to troll online effectively. Keyword, asshat. Second lesson, writing obscure deprecation messages in your gem libraries. Reminding myself that I need to email that girl who lives in Echo Park, remember? Turns out that eating a whole pound of spinach is hard to do. That said, my vegan diet is really working out now. My telekinetic powers are increasing and my base technique is totally kicking ass. Wednesday, May 25th, 2011. My actor friends love the hypnosis MP3s. They're making such great progress. One of them totally killed it with a spot-on rendition of, why the hell didn't they put Haml into Rails 3.1? I'm so proud. One of them is interviewing at Hash Rocket. making a new Hypnosis MP3 for them, mastering passive-aggressive tone and commit messages. Hey, just find out one of them got a job at GitHub. Once again, reminding myself to email that girl who lives in Echo Park. Jesus is now calling me on my phone now, so just turned everything off now. No Skype, no phone, no Twitter, no IRC. It's actually quite relaxing. Friday, May 27th. Jesus is now sending me emails. I love the guy, but enough is enough. Redirected them to the spam folder. More Hypnosis MP3s today. Now I know how to fly a Bell 2112 helicopter. I also know Kung Fu and drunken boxing. Too bad I don't drink. Saturday, May 28th. Had coffee today. Now I'm even faster. Converted an old car windshield, a Mattel Pixelvision camera, and an Arduino into a live transparent touchscreen DJ device that integrates directly with Archaeopteryx. It only makes dubstep and quotes from the movie Dune. Bene Gesserit my ass. So, there you go.
I actually gave that talk over and over and over again at a variety of conferences, and I think Ruby Fringe was the last in that sequence. So by the time that I was giving that talk, I was actually really well prepared because I had gone through it a bunch of times, I had tweaked it, I'd been like, everyone laughed at this part, nobody liked that part, take it out, move it around, blah, blah, blah. So I was very prepared. And not only that, I could tell that the energy in the room was like going in the right direction. And when my talk was about to start, when I had like 20 minutes to go, I actually went out into the stairwell of the hotel and ran up and down the stairs. I went about up to the 3rd floor and back down to the basement so that I could be like really amped up and energized. I did not actually do that earlier today because I was doing some other crap. So, fear, right? Fear is making me all worried about like how I'm gonna go on that. And then I've got this DJ set thing for which I'm also totally unprepared. Okay, slight tangent, right? Archaeopteryx. Who here actually knows what Archaeopteryx is to some degree? Okay, so thank you. So it seems like about half. All right, so why don't I give you like a brief overview because this does have to do with the DJ set. 16 probability matrix, which is 16 beats and 10 drums. And the probabilities represent the likelihood that a given drum will sound on a given beat. Okay, so what you can actually do is, and I figured out how to do this, is apply that also to bass lines and similar things. It requires an additional level of, actually 2 additional levels of abstraction. One to add pitch, and then one to make key something which you can vary. So I've got a gadget out there on the porch, or whatever it is, on the deck, which is just like a series of faders, like you would have on a DJ mixer. And what this, I have code which reads this stuff in to Ruby, and my plan is that what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this thing and have these faders change the key, right, and change the probability matrices too. However, I haven't built it. That was the tangent, and I'm totally unprepared, because it's like, there's this totally cool thing, and last time I was here, I showed everybody the totally cool thing, and now it's just vaporware. Sorry. But it could happen. And actually it will. In fact, Justin, who is there, helped me yesterday just as I was describing it, part of it, and he's like, well, why not you just... okay, so this is another tangent. But it won't take long. Okay, so Archaeopteryx runs on a loop that periodically checks a queue of events and periodically populates a queue of events. And it uses that to enable the timing of the drums, right? So you say, I need to schedule a drum at, X seconds. And that whole loop didn't interact well with the code that was reading the MIDI in. And what I was thinking is that I could actually just pop the data, when I read the MIDI data in, I can just pop it in Redis and have Archaeopteryx actually pull it out of Redis. And I was like, yeah, that sounds great. It's got keywords or buzzwords or whatever, right? But I'm talking to Justin and he's like, well, why don't you just have it be a server? I'm like, well, I don't want it to do a listen loop because it's already focused on the drum loop. It's got this timing loop. And he's like, well, why not just, you don't have to read the messages instantly. Just go to the port and see what messages have come in. So anyway, What was my point? Oh yeah, that's gonna be a thing. Of course, the bad news is I'm probably not gonna write the book on it that like these people manning the book publishers are trying to get me to write. And I feel really bad about this too because hopefully I'll tell them before they see this video. I really hope I do that. Yeah, because it just, you gotta choose, right? And there's only so much time in the day. Anyway, so I figured out how to do that, but I didn't have it ready. And let's see, oh, while I'm at it, why don't I just tell you how it's gonna work? Because it's gonna be fucking cool. It's really gonna be cool. Okay, so I actually did a little bit of DJing with it, but it has some flaws, which is if you've got this thing which can, you know, dynamically invent music in real time, and you're controlling it in real time, it's still not as real time as like just scratching a record, right? And all the cool math and music of it doesn't change the fact that, you know, if you're DJing, you need to be actually responding instantly to the crowd and, you know, setting that up. So for a while I was just like, fuck it, I'll just use it to generate beats. You know, close enough, good enough. But what I figured out is basically a spectrum from spontaneity to pre-planned, right? So the pre-programmed probability matrices which generate original beats, that's at the very pre-planned end of the spectrum, right? This stuff that I'm talking about here where I change the fader and it sends a message into a queue which then, you know, okay, we're moving to a different key signature, or you could also do that to change tempo. You could have a bank of probability matrices and select a new one out of that bank by moving the fader, right? That's like at the midpoint. And at the, you know, the spontaneous end, you just map the MIDI faders directly into parameters on the synthesizers and filters, which, you know, if you're not familiar with that stuff, long story short, it changes things instantly. So that, you know, that's a plan. Anyway. Hold on a second while I check my notes. Get that out, right? And I'm really stoked about it, but I don't have it. And basically, I brought nothing. And so what I had to do is I had to hack it all together this afternoon. And I had to borrow someone else's computer because my computer had some stupid issue. I had to buy an audio output from across the street. And basically, long story short, when it comes to actually DJing, I'm fucking terrified. Right? Like if I had just brought some records like old school, it would have been easier. However, this is actually, because you can see I have an outline, this is actually part of a point that I'm making. And to be honest with you, part of the reason I have the outline is to remind myself not only what the points are, but that they exist. Okay, so let me change topics for a second here. Who has seen the show Firefly? Do you guys know this show? Yes, okay. So for the few of you who haven't seen it, it's this wonderful, wonderful show. It's science fiction with like this weird cowboy edge to it, where everybody, they're colonists and they speak this like funny dialect of English with all these weird like 1800s words still in it. And the star of that show, his name is Nathan Fillion. He's got a new show called Castle, which doesn't have any of the sci-fi and the writing isn't as good. But, you know, I started watching that show partly because I'm an actor, and if you're an actor, like, at my level, well, if you're an actor at my level, you can't get anything. But at some point, I hope to be an actor at, like, an entry level where I'm starting to get my first roles on shows. And when you do that, your first roles that you get on shows are, you know, there's some mystery of the week show where somebody gets killed and you're the guy who gets killed. Right? That's where it starts. So this new show that Nathan Fillion has is a mystery of the week show. So there's a lot of people who go on these shows and they get killed, right? So I'm like, oh, this is something I need to know about. And Nathan Fillion, I love him from Firefly. So I started watching it and I made it through like 10, 15 episodes. It's a good show. It's a really good show. Oh, fuck, this is gonna be on video. Nathan Fillion, I'm sorry, you're gonna hate me. I saw him sleepwalking through a badly written episode. I might have to ask for this man to be there. This is so terrible. I don't know what to do about this. Fuck.
Summer Cloud's gonna kick your ass.
Summer Glow, yeah, River Tam's gonna come to my house and like karate chop me. I don't know what the video consequences will be, but for everybody here, I watched an episode of Castle where he just literally was like not there. And he just showed up and he's like, you know, saying his lines in monotone, like, and I'm like, wow, he's really not into this show. What's up with that? You know, he's like, he didn't get his coffee, or what's going on with this guy, right? And at the end of the show, I realized it was the worst written episode of Castle ever, right? It was one of the worst written TV shows about a crime of the week that I had ever seen, right? And this guy, he used to work on Firefly, which was probably the best written show on TV at the time, and maybe even since. One of the best written shows you'll ever see on TV. He was like, oh, fuck this shit, this is badly written, I'm not gonna give a damn, okay? But here's the thing, I didn't notice the writing sucked until about 20 or 30 minutes into the show, and it's only a 40-minute show. I noticed Nathan Fillion not giving a fuck within like the first 4 seconds. So for the first half hour, I was just like, what? Like, is his co-star a bitch? Like, what's his problem, you know? Okay, so that's actually not a good position to be in as an actor, right? I mean, we laugh about it, but the reason I don't want to like put it out there is because what if he sees it and, oh, you know, Giles Bouquet, you seemed like a really promising person who I really wanted to work with, and then I saw what a fucking douchebag you are. Talking all this shit about me because I had a bad day. You know, like, right? But, okay, for contrast, okay, I actually work now for hitrecord.org, which is a website put together by a guy, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, who, aka Joe, Joseph Gordon-Levitt. Was that you? Someone asked me a question, or am I hallucinating? I don't know. Anyway, it happens sometimes. Joseph Gordon-Levitt has been in a gazillion really good movies. He's in Inception, he's in Brick, 500 Days of Summer, and then one day I'm like home with the flu, and I'm going through Netflix, and I don't know if you've noticed this, but the selections on Netflix streaming are not always that good. And I end up watching G.I. Joe, Rise of Cobra. As one does from time to time. These things happen. It's not a good part of life, but it happens. And to my shock and amazement, this terrific actor who makes these amazing films is in G.I. Joe, Rise of Cobra. I'm like watching, I'm like, holy shit, that's Joe! Oh my god! Right? So I guess, you know, he did it for the money, he owed somebody a favor, I don't know what, right? It's a stupid fucking movie. It is unbelievably bad. It is really fucking dumb. However, he's in there being Cobra Commander, and he's doing it, or actually he's the doctor who becomes Cobra Commander. Spoilers, I know. Did I ruin it for you? What a great movie it would have been if I hadn't spoiled it. But anyway, he's doing it with like total fucking commitment, right? And this guy, he's gonna be up for an Oscar one day, you know what I mean? And Nathan Fillion like lost that opportunity by sleepwalking through something, you know, because I didn't watch it and think this show sucks. I watched it and I thought, Nathan Fillion seems out of it. Oh, the writing's bad too, right? Now the cause and effect worked in the opposite direction. But meanwhile, his co-star was just like, I know the writing's bad and I'm gonna bust ass anyway. You know, and that made it look good. So hold on. So what I want to suggest is that it's possible that Nathan Fillion, having his like internet fandom and having everybody who loves him from Firefly, he kind of suffered from a fear deficiency. Because he was like, I'm not afraid of losing this, you know, this series. I star in this series. I own this shit. People love me. It's just a dinky little series anyway. So if there's bad writing, fuck these guys, right? I'll just make them fire the writer. I'll just be like pouting and, sorry, bitchy, right? Camera, you know, we gotta talk. But anyway, now this actually has something to do with programmer life, okay? Because not long ago, I took a totally crappy job. And has anyone in here ever, in your life, ever had a programming job that you did not like? Anybody? I see one hand, that's amazing. Toronto, it's the promised land. This is unbelievable. Like, what? No, a programming job I didn't like? What are you talking about? Okay, so let me tell you how bad this job was. The main site, I was writing JavaScript. The main site was written in PHP, okay? And they used Windows for development, right? I showed up the first day with my laptop. They were like, why do you have a laptop? I'm like, what? What I'm a programmer. What do you think you hired me for? They're like, here's your development box. And I'm like, Windows? They still make that. Well, that's awesome. I was like so happy for them that they're like still making sales. I had no idea. So here's the thing. Like, let me tell you a little bit about this job. Like, why I had to take this crappy job. This was like 6 months ago. It really was. You know, here's Ruby Superstar, Charles Bouquet. You know, let me tell you about my PHP job. Oh my God. All right. So many years, I've always wanted to like run my own thing and like create my own products. Like I was talking with Andrew, and he's like telling me about how, yeah, I got my first thing in the App Store. I'm like, wow, that's really cool, right? So I actually did a whole year of mini apps to get ready. Like, my thing was I'm going to do a mini app every month. Like, I made Hacker Newspaper, which it downloads Hacker News, and then it takes the text of, like the first paragraph of every story, and it reformats it so it's easy to read, so it looks like a newspaper, and it gets rid of all the comments, because I don't want to read that shit, you know? And it loads, like, instantly, like, because Hacker News is slow, and it used to be slow as hell, right? And I did Minimal Bitly, which is Bitly without the user interface, and Minimal GitHub, which is GitHub with much less user interface, and stuff like that. Clueful Google, which is if you Google anything to do with JavaScript, it just adds Site Mozilla Developer Connection at the front. And my thing was, you know, I've never released a product. I'm going to build a whole bunch of things that might be useful for people. You know, do one of these every month, because then once I've gotten the habit of, you know, making things that are useful to people, it'll be easier for me to sell them, right? So I spent a whole year on that. And then I picked up this book by Dan Kennedy about how to, like, you know, sell advice. And I discovered how easy it is to do. And I made this handcuffs video that Andrew mentioned, right? And I think there's some people in here who have seen it. Actually, Mr. McDowell back here actually brought me a picture of myself to sign. I was like, what? I don't mean to embarrass you, I'm just returning the favor. But yeah, so I'm like, okay, I'm gonna autograph this thing, that's awesome. But I hear from people all the time, it's like, this video you made about like how to, you know, promote yourself as a programmer and get better jobs, ironically enough, is actually, you know, and I have a fantastic fucking job now, but, you know, all I had to do that, I didn't have to make mini apps, right? I just had to take some advice that I knew how to give and package it up in ways that people would buy, and boom, I was done, right? And I was like, wow. So then I did that, and I got bored. I kind of suffered from a fear deficiency myself at that point, like Nathan Fillion. So I went and got a medical marijuana card, because I live in California. I started smoking a lot of pot. And then I was like broke and I had no products, and I was like, oh shit, I gotta get a job. Yeah, it was really rough. It was absolutely terrible. You know, and after a while I started getting a whole bunch of Rails offers and blah, 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 but you know. All right, I'm gonna skim over this next bit. This next bit is how I had some hiring obstacles because I threw cream soda at this guy. All I want to tell you is that he totally deserved it. But don't do what I did. Okay, so anyway, I had this, you know, this totally crappy JavaScript job. It was absolutely awful, right? I mean, it was like mediocre, it was Windows, it was PHP, right? And I was in this position where I had, like, you know, gone out on a limb financially, and I wasn't like living off my savings while I was building products and selling videos. I was just building products and selling videos, right? I mean, literally, I was just like, all right, fuck it. I'm gonna, you know, start doing this now. Boom. And that was actually not the wisest way to do this, but it ran for like 6 months, 9 months without a problem. And then I, you know, had this problem of being stoned and not making products. But the point is, I totally had to do well at this job. Even, you know, the fact that it was PHP, I couldn't be like, well, it's PHP, I'm not gonna bother to do my best. I couldn't be like, you know, oh, I fucking hate Windows, I'm just gonna like dick around at this thing and then bail because I totally needed to like make it happen because I had made myself totally broke, right? So I started looking at their code, right? And their code was really bad. It needed refactoring really badly. Like their idea of object-oriented programming, and this is definitely not going to go in the video, was basically I'm going to hard code the entire object, then I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to paste it, and I'm going to change one literal to create a new object. And they did that like 400 times. Okay, so I built this thing that I called Epic Towley. Now, let me backtrack just a little bit. Towley is named after a South Park character, is a towel who likes to get high. And Towley was a project I created in 2008. And the deal with Towley is that it went through Ruby code and it looked for repetition and similarity. Okay, and it could find repetition pretty readily, and it went through Ruby code to find similarity really slowly. And in fact, repetition was pretty slow. So, for instance, if I have like 100 methods in my code base, I've got my app, my models, my views, my controllers, this thing could go in and say, look, application controller, foo controller, and bar controller all have the same method, right? And it could also go in and say, you have some methods that are similar to a degree of like 1 token or 2 tokens. But that was pretty much all it could do. It was in Ruby and it was really slow. Like I had a relatively new machine at the time and the thing would just die, right? If I wanted to find more than 1 token of difference between methods, right? And that's a refactoring tool, right? Like I've got repetition in my code base, don't repeat yourself, dry. So why don't I find highly similar blocks of code and just use that detection to find out when I need to refactor. But it wasn't performant. So Epic Towley that I created at this JavaScript job basically did the same thing, but in JavaScript, and it ran on Node.js and used Google V8, because that's what Node.js runs on. And the first step was to tidy it up a little, but I was planning to make a business out of it, but I'm not going to have time, so I'm going to open source it. So what it would do, the first iteration or whatever, is I took the function extraction stuff out of lint by, the JS lint by Douglas Crockford, right? And then I ran this against all the functions and pulled them out. I think I put them in Redis for some crazy reason. I had this thing where I was just putting everything in Redis. It's like, where are the cookies? Oh, I put them in Redis, Like, where's your sandwich? It's in Redis. But I don't actually eat sandwiches. That's another story. So I took this stuff out and had it go through that, and I had figured out a better way of doing repetition detection and similarity detection. So I was able to very easily take all the functions in this code base that were identical or that were more than 80% similar for any arbitrary percentage and identify them with this stuff, right? And then I was like, well, this is cool, but in order to use this, I'm going to have to create wrapper functions by hand. And it's actually going to be really repetitive and tedious. Now, reading repetitive, tedious code is not for humans to do. It's not what we're good at. Reading repetitive, tedious code is for computers to do, right? So what I did is I took the Johnson Ruby parser for JavaScript, right? And I got it parsing this JavaScript and all these functions that were extracted by JSLint running under Node. And then I was like, cool, all I gotta do is call the .2js method. And then I'm like, where is it? They don't have one. They don't have one. I don't know what's wrong with them. I'm so glad they're not here. They don't have a .2js method in Johnson. So then I spent weeks building this Johnson extension that would basically take all the entire parse tree and translate it back into JavaScript. Because the way they had built it, it wasn't even easy to add .2js to the component methods, right? To the component objects. Let's see. So at that point, I had something which could take a abstract syntax tree from JavaScript and rebuild it with a .2js and change the component pieces. So what I actually got Epic Towley to do is identify highly similar lines of code, wrap them in little wrapper functions, and replace the calls with calls to the function, right? Because I couldn't lose this stupid job. And I knew that the only way I could handle looking at this garbage JavaScript all day long was to figure out, at least in theory, how to solve it right. Right? Because have you ever been in a job where it sucked and they're doing everything wrong? The thing that saps your energy about that is if you know the solution is wrong, you can't commit to it, you can't get into it, right? But if you figure out, I'm going to solve this problem perfectly, and then you can inject, put all your energy into it. So anyway, after that, I started talking to them about how can I do, because I need to go on my auditions, right? Let's do part-time. And they're like, yeah, we can do that. And I was like, cool. And then I started not showing up for work. Because I don't know what took over me, but it was a crappy job, so I just bailed. But right, that was like a Joe Gordon-Levitt Cobra Commander moment, right? I'm really sorry. I don't know if there's Meg. I don't know if there's any of this that I can. But yeah. Anyway. At least I didn't use the exact terms that I had to describe the authors of Johnson. Okay, so yeah, I was like, yeah, this is gonna be awesome. I'm gonna do auditions, I'm gonna work part-time at this place. Why can't I motivate myself to go to work? I don't know. Oh, it's because I have some money now, so I don't need to, if I lose the job, I'll live. All right, fuck it, why don't I quit? And then I quit, right? And then, I discovered this amazing new job working for hitrecord.org. Okay, so that's my new job. So, real quick, here is why this thing is awesome, okay? This is a website where anyone can contribute a creation, an artistic creation. Like if you wrote a little story, you can add the story. You drew something, add the drawing. If you are an actor, you can do a monologue, or you can read the story that someone else submitted. There are animators, there are musicians, and they actually made a couple short films and took these things to festivals like South by Southwest and Sundance, with over 300 contributors to these films. And it's this website, right? It started as a PHP bulletin board, right? And it was basically just like Joe Gordon-Levitt's fan club, right? And people were like, here's my, because he was doing this thing, I'm gonna hit record, I'm gonna create something every day, right? Which I totally get that. I did a thing a couple years ago where I was making an MP3 every day, right? Because if you establish habits, that's how you get to change things, that you want to do new things. Anyway, hey, can I bug you for my spinach? Thanks. Thank you. Spinach. I love spinach. Okay, so this website is like a collaboration platform / fan club / creative community / web-based production company, right? And they had a post on the 37 Signals job board, and I had recently had a conversation with someone who I thought, this person is very original. This is a girl. She's very original, very creative. She's an actor. You definitely can't put this up because anyway. But she's a little bit crazy, and I just told her, I'm like, you know what? You're really cool, but you're also a little bit insane. And she's like, yes, I embrace my insanity. So I was like, well, I'll give that a shot, right? So I saw this job ad for Joe Gordon-Levitt, and I'm like, holy shit, this is perfect. I just boom, 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 wrote down the most rambling and insane job letter anyone ever wrote, right? And just fuck it, send it, boom, right? And it was like, hey, you're awesome, I love your movies, oh my god, hey look, I drew this, it's my hand. And the other day I saw a bird. It was just completely insane, but it was just hit send, and somehow it worked, and I got this great job. But the things that they do with it are amazing, right? They took movies to Sundance, that's a big deal. And when they were there, they had kiosks set up where you could record some music and it would go straight into their process. And it's like, hey Hollywood, you know what? This is the digital future and how it'll happen. And they had this live show at the Vista Theater in Silver Lake, which is near Hollywood, but a nicer part of town. Nicer in the sense that it's more like here and less paved. You know what I mean, right? Like everybody thinks of Los Angeles, it's paved everywhere, right? This is like a little wilder. So I go to this show and it's just like this endless series of, here's this, we made this little cartoon of a shadow and it lives under a car and, it grows longer at night and it cavorts in the fields. And there's all these movies that they made and all these art forms, and they got like the crowd together to sing this song because someone had, uploaded a song, and we're gonna get everybody in the audience singing this song, and everyone like came up to the front and sang, and he's like, oh, I know this guy because he's been on the site. So at the time there was no YouTube, and like finding video files was difficult to do, but I actually had a ton of video files on my hard drive which were pornographic. So I actually had a ton of reference videos. So I thought, why don't I learn, I've got all these videos, I want to learn how to do like video effects. Why don't I just add a bunch of video effects to porn? So I called it acid porn, and the idea was porn on acid, right? So I made a whole ton of this stuff, and it was really cool that, picture like a theater filled with people, and everyone's just watching these movies that everyone has had some small part in creating. I mean, there was a woman there who flew to Los Angeles from Florida to be part of, to see it, right? And she wasn't a stalker. Seriously, like it was just like part of the community. So what I wanted to do is actually, a couple of years ago, there was this saucy scandal in the Ruby community because we love our drama in Ruby, right? We don't have time for soap operas, right? So we got our drama in the workplace or in the open source community. And there was this guy who showed porn on slides. And, everyone was like, what the fuck is wrong with you? That's degrading to women. And he's like, porn is not necessarily degrading to women. And it was like, on the blogs for like days and weeks and months. And I wanted to show my acid porn and then show this dipshit slides, because when we told him that was degrading to women, we knew porn is not necessarily degrading to women. It's how he did it. But I didn't bring that shit, so whatever. I totally had a point though. Oh yeah, future of entertainment. Yeah, so it was really cool to have all these people in the place watching movies that they had some role in creating. And that is like a fundamentally different thing from the way Hollywood normally works, right? Normally, you have a premiere for a movie, and everyone who is involved in the movie is there, right? In like some fancy city, like, it's in London, it's in Los Angeles, it's in the big city, blah, 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 in Monaco, right? Or whatever. And then all the rest of the world is just consumers, right? But with this thing, Hit Record, they took it on a tour, and in many of the places they went, people in the audience had played a role in creating what was being shown. And that's very much like the internet era. It's like we don't create new hotel chains, we create Airbnb. We don't create like another Hollywood with its giant premieres. We have this sort of like community-oriented, produced entertainment thing. So it's really exciting. How long am I going? Am I going like really long?
You're about 40 minutes.
Really? Already?
You know what?
Okay, alright, sorry. Alright. So it was really awesome, but the code base was not awesome. It was totally crappy code, and it sapped my will to live. I was bored out of my fucking mind. So what I did is I actually sold these guys on this completely ridiculous, terrifying goal, rebuild the entire site from scratch in 2 weeks, right? And the reason is because I didn't want to be suffering from a fear deficiency, right? I thought if I scared the shit out of myself, it would motivate me to get going. And I have actually been doing better work ever since. So let's see. It's kind of even how I got started in technology. I moved to San Francisco with $300, and I knew I had to hit the ground running or I'd be completely fucked. And after a year, I had like this really nice apartment. We had views of both bridges, and a girlfriend, I had a car. Actually, I didn't have a car, I had a girlfriend's car. But, it got me from place to place, whatever. Fun social life, money, blah, blah, blah. And I had actually been totally broke before that, so it was really exciting. And here's a great example. A couple of years ago, I actually had a heart attack at the age of 35. And I was afraid for my life. And prior to the heart attack, I had heart surgery to prevent the heart attack. And after the heart attack, the cardiologist gave me more of the same surgery, you know, despite the fact that it did not prevent the heart attack. They're like, well, you know what, this is our favorite surgery. We're gonna give it to you anyway. You know, it's great. And they just kept on giving it to me. They gave me like 3 times where they put these stents in my heart, which are like these, you know, they hold your arteries open. And one time, these idiots actually put like they put like a wire inside you that like inserts the stent, okay? So they put something, the catheter is what it's called. It was actually too big to go into my heart, right? It did not fit. And I actually saw my heart stop on this little monitor that they had right in front of me. And I'm like, you fucking idiots! Take that thing out! What is wrong with you? And they were like, we know. Like I was a kid, right? Like, I'm the fucking jerk here. Like, geez, why you gotta make a big deal out of it? Oh, you saw your heart stop, so what? God. Alright, so that was really, really frightening. But here's what happened, right? I mean, that was like an apex of fear. And afterwards, you know, the doctor is talking to me, and he's like, blah, 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 you know, here's your new stent, and blah, 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 this is great surgery, and we're really glad we, you know, helped you here. And I'm like, look, how many of these things can you fit in me? And he's like, oh, and he runs out, and he comes back with a map of my heart, and he's like, 19. Whoa! It was sarcasm, you dipshit! What's wrong with you? You know, so I decided that I basically have to take matters into my own hands, okay? So I go on Amazon.com, I spend $150, I get all these books on like different approaches to solving heart disease, and I find this vegan diet that completely solves the fucking problem. I lose 80 pounds in 6 months, and in only 2 months, my cholesterol drops by 100 points. Now, my dad had a heart attack, and they put him on statin medications, which is the official best solution. He lost 70 points in 10 years, okay? So that's doctors, in my opinion. But my point is, that shit that I found for $150 on Amazon.com, just buying a bunch of books and reading them, outperforms most cardiologists, okay? And that was also driven by fear, right? If I had not had the shit scared out of me, I would have never gone and done that. And you know what? When I started smoking weed again, I started eating burritos. I got some of it back. But spinach, it's good shit. Wouldn't it be awesome if that was like the new slogan? Yeah, maybe it will be one day. Anyway, let's see. Well, there's a whole bunch of other stuff here, which is a bit tangential. And I think I've gone like almost an hour. So let me wrap this up. Fear is really good for you. You should do things that frighten you, right? You know, say you're like, I want to do more in open source. Put yourself in a position where if you don't, you're going to get shot. Don't take my advice. I'm just making you think. Okay, and one of the things that you should look for Epic Towley when it comes out, especially if you do any work with JavaScript, and especially if you do any work with legacy code, because it would not be difficult to adapt it for Ruby. And you could learn quite a bit, because I was really fascinated with artificial intelligence a few years ago, put some time into it, and it's actually really straightforward code. True. And yeah, I don't know, I'm out of steam. Thank you.
Thank you, you're my favorite person. Yeah, so if you want to head out back and visit our lovely bartender on the roof again, we're going to get some tracks started in about half an hour. Giles does a free bird right now, but then, what are you DJing? Jungle and...
Yeah, jungle,
drum and bass. Lots of treats. So anyway, stick around, eat some food, have some drinks. We'll see you soon.